Welcome to the Practical NLP podcast with me, Andy Smith. This week we're continuing to explore the set of magic questions known as the Meta Model. In the last podcast we looked at distortions. This week, generalizations. As the name suggests, these are sweeping statements that say either all examples of this are the same, or this has never happened, or else unquestioned rules about what should or shouldn't happen, or what you can and can't do. This reflects black and white thinking and inflexibility. A person who uses a lot of generalizations is not going to be very comfortable with uncertainty or ambiguity, most of the time anyway. We all use generalizations as a set of general guidelines for finding our way around the world. If we had to think every decision out from first principles, it would take a very long time to get anything done. Most of the time they work okay for us. Sometimes these generalizations hold us back, or get in the way of seeing opportunities, or, as in the case of racial or gender stereotyping, cause problems for other people as well. So it's useful to have some questions ready for when we need to challenge generalizations in our own internal dialogue, or we want to get other people to re-examine their own prejudices. So pattern number 6, universals, or universal quantifiers in the NLP jargon. Universals are what we would normally think of as generalizations in everyday English. Everyone does it. It's never going to happen. Things always go wrong for me. The tip-off words include all, nobody, everyone, always, never. And of course you can also get sweeping generalizations without those words being explicitly stated, like salespeople are manipulative or bosses grind you down. When people make universal generalizations like this, they're not considering any possible counterexamples, either because they've heard the generalization so many times that they just repeat it without thinking, or because they're in the grip of such a strong emotion that at that moment they've forgotten about the counterexamples and the generalization just feels true for them at that moment. So we need a question that might get them to notice counterexamples. One way you can do this is to just repeat the universal in a questioning tone. Nobody? Ever? Or you could ask, has there ever been a time when this wasn't the case? Number 7, modal operators. Okay, back to the jargon. Modal operators are words which indicate that there's a rule, like should, ought, got to, have to, need to, must. These are called modal operators of necessity, or that indicate that something can or can't be done. Usually can or can't will be the tip-off words. These are called modal operators of possibility or impossibility, if it's can't. Let's take modal operators of necessity first. If someone says, I have to do it, or I must do it, that suggests that they don't have a choice, which is inherently a stressful way of thinking, by the way. If they say, I should do it, or I ought to do it, they're giving themselves a hard time for not doing it. Now you could ask, who says you have to do it? That would send them back looking for the origins of that rule, and wouldn't necessarily be the most effective question. It's generally more effective to ask questions about the consequences, because the way that people keep limiting rules going is often to imagine terrible but unspecified consequences. So when someone says, I must do this, you can ask, what will happen if you don't? That question gets them to look at the possible effects of the option that they've been ruling out. They may realize that actually that option isn't so bad as they thought, and they do have a choice. Or at the very least, their answer will give you more information about their map of the world. So if someone says, I must do it, and that prompts the question, what will happen if you don't? What might you ask if someone says, I mustn't do it? How about, what will happen if you do? Again, it looks to the consequences. With should and ought, you could ask, what stops you? I'm not that keen on this question, although you see it in many NLP books, because it focuses people on negatives, and they may start coming up with more reasons to justify the rule. I find that what will happen if you don't, and even what will happen if you do, will get you more high-quality information. With modal operators of possibility, you generally aren't going to want to question statements where people say, I can. Unless it's something like, yeah, I can do brain surgery. In which case I'd probably be asking things like, how do you know? And could you unstrap me from the table, please? The beliefs that limit people are usually expressed as, I can't. When people say, I can't do something, they generally mean, I can't do it yet, because they haven't learned how, or gained enough experience to believe that they can, or I don't want to do it, because either it goes against their values or they think there's too much effort involved. Again, you could ask, what stops you? Which might be the right question in some cases. You can help them to identify the steps involved to be able to do it. You can also ask, again, what would happen if you did? If there's anything holding them back from wanting to do it, this question will usually uncover that, or maybe strengthen their desire to do it because they get a better sense of the benefits that will come from taking that action. So anytime you hear a modal operator of either type that you want to challenge or find out more about, what will happen if is a good question. That's it for this week's podcast. If you want more NLP between now and next time, go to coachingleaders.co.uk and look at the many NLP articles on the blog, or go to nlpwebstore.com where there are free NLP related downloads, also emotional intelligence related and appreciative inquiry downloads, and also some NLP products that you can buy. See you next time.